Hey everybody, welcome to episode 25 of the Hey Kerwin show. We have Matthias back in the house. Kaboom! Good to have you back, Matty.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
He's been over in Canada land flirting with his Sheila.
True that. Yeah, I haven't touched a camera in a while.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you still know how to use a camera?
Yeah, I do.
You sure?
Did you see my before? I used it when you were looking at
Yeah,
the
I
wanted
saw that.
sign.
You looked a little shaky. You're like, ooh, fuck,
okay,
what is this?
Yeah, what am I doing?
Yeah. Like
First
running
question.
right.
Jessica Javrul. Hey, Kerwin.
Hey, Jess.
What are the characteristics of a high performer? And what are the steps to follow and the obstacles to overcome to become a master at high performance?
Ooh. Okay, let's just look at the characteristics. Let's break this down. Characteristics of a high performer. Someone who has a background in discipline. Someone who is very familiar with structure. Because to me, structure and discipline are two. Like when you look at high performance, the basis of high performance is someone who has adhered to a series of structure with a level of discipline that has created habits that have become fundamentally ingrained within their personality and their life. And when we look at, high performance traits, like for me, sport, the first place I go to is sport. It doesn't necessarily have to be just be sport, it can be academic as well, but for me, I'm looking for people who are mentally tough and also physically tough. And look, to be an academic, you can be quite mentally tough if you want to study for fucking 20 hours a day. But like the real ultimate test of high performance to me is someone who has integrated the physical and the mental and also the talent. Because it's one thing to be physically tough. It's one thing to be mentally tough, but it's another thing to be able to apply it to, to a skill, to an area, to a talent that gives you the ability to, really express potential and not just do something. And so for me, I look for some people who've got a background in sport. I look for people who've got a background in the military. I look for people who've got a background, and I know martial arts is a sport, but martial arts, again, it's something that is disciplined. It's something that is structured. And so for me, so when I hire people, Marin's a great example. Background in athletics. We've got a lot of people here background in dance. Dancers, that's a fucking tough sport. And by the way, not everyone in the team, has a background in. Like Matthias, as an example, he doesn't have a background.
Got nothing.
No, but you do. You're a gamer. Because Matthias has got a background in gaming at a very high level. You should see this dude play noughts and crosses. He's the bomb. And also, what is it? Space Invaders? No. Paperboy? No. Halo. Yeah. He's a fucking Halo freak. But Matthias, he's got a really strong background in competitive gaming, and so for me that was a very strong proposition because I'm going to assume that when you were in your heyday of gaming, you could stay up until like 3-4 in the morning gaming, right?
Every day of high school.
Boom. And so for me, that's this. Because a lot of people go, "Oh, these kids are wasting their fucking life playing video games." Now it's a professional sport, where the top people are making $20-30 million a year. But it takes actually an enormous amount of discipline to stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning and actually play video games at a high level where you're literally competing in ridiculously high stress scenarios where you're dealing with high volumes of information. So that to me, they're the characteristics that I look for in a high performance. But the steps to get someone into high performance. Look, I think the steps really have to be, someone's got to want it, you've got to want it. You can't actually, you can't make someone become a high performer. You can't push someone into high performance. They've got to want it. They've got to want, whatever the outcome is, they've got to want it more than they don't. And I know that sounds very fucking cliche, but that's the reality of the situation. Because there's got to be a desire that is big enough, there's got to be a reason big enough that is linked to something emotional inside, to a value that enables people to push through when they don't want to. Because what I've observed about high performance, if people are doing something that they don't want to do, the moment it gets tough, or if people are doing something they're not emotionally involved in, not emotionally enrolled in, the moment things start to get tough, like either physically or mentally, they just go, "Oh fuck, this is just too hard." And they start to bail out and they start to throw their hands up. So you've got to want it, because it's that want, it's that desire, it's that passion, like it's that integrity of the desire. And I mean the integrity of the desire, that you want it so bad that you're willing to compromise on pain, that you're willing to compromise on physical pain, the mental pain, and the discomfort that comes with high performance. There's a great book that you can read called Drive, The Surprising Truth About what really motivates us. And one of the fundamentals of that book is learning how to connect people with something that is internal. Because when you try and get people to be focusing on external rewards in rewarding performance based on external rewards, their performance will always be directly linked to whatever the prize is. Whereas when you can fundamentally at the earliest age possible link someone to an internal drive where they become so driven because of either the satisfaction that they feel or the benefits that they feel, or even in some cases the levels of the high that they feel. Oh man, I can't believe I did this. The dopamines, endorphins, and everything else that's attached to that emotional response. That's where you're going to get the purest form of motivation, which is ultimately going to allow someone to express their talent at the highest level, but in an environment where performance is key. That's what's required. So for me, you can't make someone become a high performer. They've got to want it, but there's got to be this internal. And I say bullshit to the whole DNA game. Like I've been listening to this a lot, like with people saying it's got to be in your DNA, and I say fucking bullshit. It does not have to be in your DNA. Because one day you can wake up and fall in love with something that you've never realized that you loved before, and then all of a sudden your whole life can completely change and you can become a raging success. So fuck the DNA argument. It's complete bullshit. If you want it bad enough, you've just got to find that thing. And that's why I think oftentimes, sometimes you've got to treat life like Baskin Robbins. What do they got? 52 flavors? Yeah, because I had 48 jobs, right? And so for me, I think life is like a fucking buffet. Life is like Baskin Robbins. You want to go and try every fucking ice cream that you can because, sooner or later you go, oh yeah, this tastes good. Oh, this tastes good. But sooner or later you'll taste one ice cream and you go, oh my God, this is the best ice cream I've ever had in my entire life. And it's at that point you go, oh, I am now an advocate for chocolate. I am now passionate. I'm now driven about fucking chocolate or rum and raisin. Or white. What did I have at fucking Messina the other day? It was Fat Elvis. That was okay, but the one that was really good was a white chocolate salted caramel fucking yogurt thing. It was amazing. Anyway, I found a new zest for ice cream. But take that to the bank.
How did we start with high performance and end up with ice cream? That's what
well, to me, it's
a question for the next
intrinsically linked. High performance and ice cream. Come on.
Just a follow-up question on that, what are the benefits of high performance?
The benefits of high performance is being able to achieve levels, because you talked about mastery, if you're not high performance in anything, you're not going to, and you never achieve mastery anyway, but if you want to express levels of mastery, you're not going to achieve it unless you perform at the highest level possible. And so for me, high performance, really is. What was your question again?
And what are the benefits of high performance?
The benefits of high performance, just so I want to be on point with this, is so many people, and I ask this question, who here, whenever I do a seminar, I always ask this question, who here feels like on some level they're not expressing their full potential? And literally 90% of the hands in the room go up. And this is the benefit of high performance, is you actually get to experience your potential. And potential is where you get into those zones where you're like, holy shit, oh my God, I didn't think I could do this. I'm better than I thought I was. Wow, I'm actually quite good at this. And so to me, high performance allows you to, you can express potential without being a high performer. You can just be naturally good at something. But when you get into the zones of high performance, you get to express your potential at the highest level, at the most inspirational level for yourself, for your family and your friends, but also for the people who are watching and the community that you're surrounded with. So massive benefits. And you get ice cream.
Love it. John Carpenter.
Hey, John.
Where and how do you find a good herd?
The local zoo. Look, a good herd is relative to the behaviours that they demonstrate. And, I think to you, what you've got to look at is, to me, when it comes to herd, you've got to reverse engineer what you're looking for. And I know maybe this sounds a little bit clinical to selecting your friends, but the way to find a good herd is to find the people that are doing what it is that you want to do, or aspiring, or that are collaborating to do what it is that you want to do. To me, when it comes to a good herd, I'm looking for people that are, driven by a cause greater than just making money. I am, when I look for a herd, I'm looking for people who are incredibly talented in everything from creative all the way through to even fucking, accounts. I just look for people who just have incredible levels of talent. But I also look for people that want more, but that want to be a part of more, but are also fundamentally aiming for, striving for, going for more than just being average. And so for me, I surround myself with people just like that, because then when I look around, first of all, I'm inspired because of the standard that is set. But at any time I think about lowering my standard, and look, I think about lowering my standard, time to time. But whenever I do, I literally think about everyone that I'm surrounded by. And I'm like, oh my God, how would that look to my other horses if I went and rolled in shit instead of rolling in, clay? because horses sometimes roll in clay so that they don't get bitten by mosquitoes and stuff. Horses are smart. So, but to me, I really do consider the effects of my behaviour on the herd around me. And at an unconscious level, when you behave in a way that is out of sync with the rest of the herd, they're going to come in and correct you, for the good or for the bad. And so for me, when I'm looking for a herd, I'm looking for a herd that are running at the speed that I'm running at, but I'm also looking for herds that are running faster than me. Because I think we should all have multiple herds. You shouldn't just, pin yourself down or narrow yourself down to one herd. You should be looking for multiple herds where you get different needs met. And it's like having an open social relationship whereby you don't just define yourself based on one social set. You have multiple. I have multiple social sets. I have I have my herd in here with my team, which is like, don't tell anyone, but it's like my favourite herd. Then I have my herd with some of my family members, which is it's a much smaller herd, but it's a very, very different herd. I have a herd of mates that I hang out with. I have a herd of clients that I hang out with, and I have a herd in my community, like my community at large on social media. Like that's probably, actually, if I'm really honest, you guys are my favourite herd.
Come on.
But I know, right? Don't tell Matthias, you'll get a little bit jealous. But but for me, it's by surrounding yourself with people whereby the opposite behaviours of what you're trying to demonstrate aren't acceptable. And when they are demonstrated, they get called out, because that's what people do. Because if you're hanging around with a herd that don't aspire to success, and you start demonstrating success-related behaviours, those herd members are going to call you out and say, hey, what do you think you're doing working so hard? Hey, what do you think you're doing working on a Friday night and not coming out and hanging out? Hey, what do you think you're doing spending all this time doing this when you could be with me? Like, which is the equivalent of, hey, what do you think you're doing fucking going home early when you should be working a little bit harder? Hey, what do you think you're doing? Saying that when you should be saying this. Oh, you think you're not good enough? You're fucking good enough. Stop saying that shit. Say something else. It's like, that's what a good herd will do. A good herd will call you out in the right direction. A bad herd will call you out in the wrong direction, but you're going to get called out either way. The question is, what direction do you want to be pulled? I'm so cool. I have remote control for my heater.
Tony Stark.
I am.
In the building.
Jarvis, turn the heater on.
Next year. Bon Hayes.
Bon Hayes.
Hey, Kerwin.
Hey, Bon.
Best way to control addiction?
Deal with the underlying issues. I guess, does he reference any type of addiction, or is he just saying addiction in general?
Generally just addiction.
Look, addiction is a neurological condition that typically results as a range of environmental impacts that happen that affect the way the brain develops. Some of those environmental impacts have everything to dealing with being exposed to trauma, being exposed to physical pain, mental pain, different forms of abuse, even neglect, and neglect and attunement. And neglect, a lot of people, when you hear the word neglect, they think, I was left in a cardboard box as a child. Neglect for some people, and this is really interesting, is literally in some cases not being hugged by a parent, because there are enormous physiological development there is an enormous physiological developments that are triggered by physical touch, by affection, by hugging, by kissing, by that interaction at an intimate level with with your maternal figures or with maternal figures or with your parents. And neglect, in essence, is a form of, your parents might have loved you, but they maybe never hugged you as much as what you perhaps were required by, because we're mammals. When you look at a zebra, when it gets born in the wild, or a giraffe, or any other form of mammal, when it's born, naturally what the parents do is they go over and first of all, they eat the placenta, because that is full of, it's mineral rich, protein rich, to essentially remineralize and reneutralize the being that just gave birth. But then the mother then is driven by biological instincts to lick all of the fluids off the child that's just been born, or off the animal that's just been born. Now, biologically, it's been driven to replenish itself, but also Mother Nature knows that the more physical touch, the licks, that actually activates the what do you fucking call it? The immune system, but it's the lymphatic system. Which is the underpinning immune system. So that in itself has a huge impact on brain development. Attunement is as little as just looking into the eyes of your child, or having someone, a maternal or parental figure, looking into your eyes and connecting with you, deeply connecting with you, not just being present, but deeply connecting with you. So there are a whole range of factors that really affect the way that a brain develops. And when the brain develops in a different way, the blood starts to flow in different areas. And it means that we also have different levels of neurotransmitters in the brain, different levels of dopamine, different levels of endorphins. And sometimes when we've experienced, whether it be levels of neglect or abuse or a lack of affection or attunement, the brain develops in such a way where the dopamine levels aren't at a normal level. And so when you are exposed to a substance that gives you a rush of endorphins or gives you a rush of dopamine, your brain literally, in many cases, the first time starts to feel normal. Okay, it starts to feel normal, and then you start going, oh my God, this is amazing. And that's when you start going, oh, if I have this all the time, then I'll start to feel normal all the time. But then it becomes a dependence issue, and then the biology gets thrown out. So the question was, how do we control addiction? By dealing with the underlying issues. And so for me, my addiction is rooted in everything from physical trauma, mental trauma. Look, my mum was one of the most affectionate human beings on the planet. So I definitely didn't get any form of abusive neglect, but I certainly had some challenges growing up when it came to my environment, and as a result my brain developed in a different way. And so for me now, the way I deal with my addiction is by first of all being conscious of the emotions and the feelings that come up when the substance isn't present, and then doing the work, doing the personal work. And this is the key. How do you deal with addiction? You do the work. You do the work. You deal with the underlying issues. You deal with the underlying trauma. You deal with the underlying resentment that you perhaps feel to a parent or a maternal figure or an authority figure that perhaps triggered you or created the environments. Because if there's any resentment or any hate or any angst that you're experiencing or that you're holding on to, then that shit's just poison. Buddha said something really smart, something to the effect of, if you hold on to resentment. It's the equivalent of trying to drink poison in the hope of hurting someone else. He was smarter than me. He made it sound a lot better than me, but that was basically the equivalent. And so for me, and I'm very much someone who is an advocate of developing levels of awareness so that you know where your addictions are. Because, by the way, addiction to me, although it's a neurological condition, to me it's a spectrum. And every single one of you, regardless of your situation or where you think you are, is on the spectrum. The question is, at what level are you on the spectrum? So people who've experienced severe abuse, severe neglect, severe trauma, they'll be, in most cases, high on the spectrum as their brain developed in different ways, and they'll be, in most cases, really heavy, hardcore drug users. Whereas perhaps some people only experience mild levels of trauma or mild levels of neglect or mild levels of attunement. And so their addictions might be rooted in certain processes or certain behaviours like shopping or sex or, even just, maybe 2 glasses of wine every night. Because, by the way, 2 glasses of wine every night is enough to get you mildly intoxicated. But if you need to have 2 glasses of wine every night and when you don't, you get a little bit grumpy, then there's an underlying level of addiction there. Behavioural addictions, but anger is an addiction. Being in love is an addiction. There are so many of these mild addictions and social addictions that we in our culture consider to just be normal behaviours, but they're actually addiction spectrum related behaviours. There's a great book that was written by a guy called Gabor Mate called The Realms of the Hungry Ghost. And he deals with the hardest of the hardcore addicts, and he talks a lot about how addiction develops, how ADHD develops as a result of the brain and how it develops as a result of those issues, but also how ADHD is a predisposition for addiction, which is something that we're only just learning about, which is gives us a lot of opportunity for those who have been early diagnosed with ADHD to start doing different kinds of work, different types of therapy to perhaps reduce the incidence of them taking a path of addiction at some point in the future. But the base answer to the question is do the work. Work on you, work on the issues, work on your triggers, the stuff that pisses you off, work on that because that therein lies the key to your freedom.
Beautiful. That's episode 20.
Is that it?
That's it.
Is that it?
Literally it.
Episode 25 of the Not a Lightning Round, hashtag Hey Kerwin Show. Question of the day, seeing as though there was a little bit of theme of addiction, what is the one thing that you can't live without? That when you don't have it, that you can't live without. Maybe it's a toy, maybe it's a person, because we can be addicted to toys, we can be addicted to pets. And I'm curious to know, what's the one thing that you are conscious of that you can't live without? Maybe it's a couple of glasses of wine, maybe it's a beer, maybe it's beers just on Saturday nights. Maybe you have to get beers just on Saturday nights, but as long as you get beers on Saturday nights, then the world is good. What is the one thing that you can't live without? And also, let me know what your questions are. Hashtag Hey Kerwin, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Instagram, everywhere. You can even spray paint the sign outside my office with hashtag Hey Kerwin. Actually, No, don't do that. No. Saunders Street Piedmont, don't do that.
What's your one thing you can't live without?
Oh, the one thing I can't live without, what is my current addiction? Right now it's meditation. Oh, look, my son. I just adore my son. I can't get enough of him. I want to eat his feet. But right now, like I'm just so deep in my meds right now. I'm so deep in my meditation right now. I'm so deep in my training. Yeah, I love my training, but my son, I can't live without my son. But I could, but yeah, I don't want to. That's episode 25 of the Hey Kerwin Show. Say hi to your mum for me.